takes him to the Fort Lauderdale swimming pool, and he goes, all right, you walk across the water, you can wear your hair any way you like. Because he brought up Jesus Christ. Jesus walked on water. You walk across this pool, you can wear your hair anywhere you like. And so Piniella lost his battle right there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hitting for the Cycle, episode 61 to be exact. I'm here alongside my co-host, Ryan. Ryan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fine. I can't complain too much. Spring training games have started, and we're starting to get a look at some new faces in different cities. And some drama has happened around the league a little bit too, but other than that, can't really complain. Yourself?
Can't complain. I mean, now we could obviously watch some baseball, even though the baseball games themselves aren't, they don't count. But just to see specifically baseball on our screen again, the weather has been a lot better over here in the area. So you just kind of get that itch now of like baseball starting to turn around the corner. So really exciting stuff. But before we get started into our overall show, obviously, as usual, we got to get into our social stuff. So make sure right down here in the ticker down below, Hitting for the Cycle on the Empty Bench Network. Make sure to subscribe on all of our socials. So follow Hitting for the Cycle on HFTC ETB. Also follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/ETB Network. Also make sure to listen to Hitting for the Cycle wherever you get your podcast. And Hitting for the Cycle as well is presented by our own friends over at Playback. So Ryan, let's get into it. So obviously, to begin our show, the Guardians' Larry Dolan passed away, unfortunately, on February 23rd. Ryan, if you want to kind of get more into some of the background of Larry Dolan, by all means, you can go ahead.
Yeah, so Larry Dolan, he was the principal owner of the Cleveland Indians/Guardians. He had been in that role since 2000. He had purchased Cleveland in 2000 for $323 million from Richard E. Jacobs. If you're an old school baseball fan like we are, you remember Progressive Field used to be called Jacobs Field. And that's who that stadium was named after when it was opened up in 1994. And Dolan led the Indians/Guardians to some success during his tenure. The Indians made the playoffs in 2007, 2013, and 2016. Of course, the team came within one win of winning their first World Series since 1948 in 2016, taking the Cubs to that classic and emotional 7-game World Series. Unfortunately for them, they came up short. They were rebranded the Guardians in 2022, where they made the playoffs that year and last year in 2024. Dolan also started Sports Time Ohio to broadcast Cleveland Indians games beginning in 2006. And in 2012, that was sold to Fox Entertainment Group. And beginning in 2013, his son Paul, he held ownership duties in the title of owner, CEO, and chairman of the Cleveland Guardians. So that was Paul Dolan. Dolan, like I said, was with the Cleveland organization for a long time. He is a native Clevelander. So he, his heart and his roots are firmly entrenched in the city of Cleveland. His legacy is there forever. And Dolan was 94 years old at the time of his passing. So rest in peace to Larry Dolan. Condolences go out to him and his family. Ben, your mic is off, Ben.
My apology. The owner, Larry Dolan, passed away at age 94, which is absolutely just an incredible life. I mean, when you kind of look at it. Just my heart goes out to, the Dolan family. It's really unfortunate, that unfortunately this happened. But obviously to go to that overall age, it's truly remarkable in terms of the life that he had. 94, pretty long life. And He just really did a lot in terms of for the overall organization, and my heart and my condolences go out to everybody that's involved through this tragedy.
Yeah, and just to quickly touch on Dolan's personal life, he was born on February 8th, 1931. February 8th, coincidentally, is the day after my birthday, February 7th. He attended St. Ignatius High School, and he was a huge sports fan. He played both baseball and football, and he went to the University of Notre Dame, and he received his law degree in 1956. He also had a career as an attorney, and he also served 2 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, and he achieved the ranking of first lieutenant. And like I said, he eventually got his foot in the door into sports. He had originally tried to buy other Ohio sports teams, such as the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Reds, before ultimately landing his dream gig with the Indians in 2000. So honestly, you can make a movie based on Larry Dolan's life. He did a lot. And like I said, he lived a long life, 94 years. So yes, rest in peace to Larry Dolan, and condolences go out to him and his family.
100%. And so, just my thoughts and prayers go out to him. So we're going to now go to our next topic. And Ryan, this is related to your team. The New York Yankees have a couple traditions that they used to pretty much have for most of their franchise's history. The first was the facial hair specifically. You obviously saw so many people on social media saying to, obviously get the facial hair, out. We don't want it anymore. There's a ton of situations with players, with the organization, the front office, in which they wouldn't want to come to the Yankees because, they wanted to keep their beards. And, you obviously saw just recently Devin Williams, who just came over from the Milwaukee Brewers. He had to shave his beard off. And about a week later, the Yankees announced after most of their franchise's history that they are now taking the beard policy in which you don't have to wear a beard out of it. Now, specifically, you can wear a beard for the New York Yankees. I don't know personally, Ron, how you feel about it. I think for me specifically, I think it's kind of cool that now you have the option. I know that there's a lot of teams personally that are very strict, and they obviously want to have kind of the way that their organizations want to run, which I really respect a lot. I thought there was one tradition, at least, obviously from my Red Sox side, but it was beard specifically, in which we 2013 with guys like Jared Saltalamacchia, Mike Napoli, and others. They had kind of a good luck tradition, I guess, going with the beards, which is really funny, but whatever works, I guess, right? So that's one of the policies out of two that the Yankees decided to now take out. Is now specifically they are open to wearing a beard or not wearing a beard. I know that Aaron Judge, obviously, they asked him already if he's going to grow a beard, and apparently he said no. Apparently he wants to kind of keep it as is. But a guy like Carlos Rodon, obviously, he had a beard, I think, over with the Giants, and they asked him, and he said that he, more likely than not, will probably go back to getting a beard. So there's obviously some guys that will and some guys that won't. And then the second tradition, in which I love to see specifically because that would mean the Yankees would lose, but it was a really weird type of tradition, is typically when the Yankees win, they would play New York, New York. Obviously, that's a very well-known song. I like the song itself. I mean, if the Red Sox are there and I'm there, sometimes that makes me kind of sad because I know for a fact my team lost, but it's a really good song, I can't admit. But they would also play it, too, when they lose. And I thought that was something I always told myself. I'm like, well, as a Red Sox fan, if they play New York, New York, it's like, all right, you're celebrating if they win, and you're kind of like, after you lose. I don't know. I mean, it just kind of didn't make sense. It's like the Red Sox playing Dirty Water They obviously would win, but they also play dirty water when they lose. Like, no, that would be a sour taste in my mouth, like leaving the overall park. So they finally are taking out New York, New York. And I think, Ryan, they're playing a song like something This Is Life or whatever. I think you have to tell me specifically they're losing Saw now, but all I know is that they are taking New York, New York out of their losses, which I think is really, I think, a good thing for you guys. Yeah, I think really the wake up call really for that was after the Dodgers went to win the World Series against you guys last year, and they still play New York, New York, which I bet for you and a lot of people it made you very upset. So now the traditions that we've kind of seen with you guys for a long period of time, I feel like they were more overdue than not. They're finally over. And now let's take it to my Yankee fan. How do you feel about these? I bet you feel pretty good overall. But I'll let you take it away from here.
All right, so I'll start with the facial hair rule. So yes, Hal Steinbrenner on February 22nd broke a nearly 50-year tradition of the Yankees implementing a clean-shaven face policy. He released a statement, and the statement read, "In recent weeks, I have spoken to a large number of former and current Yankees, spanning several eras, to elicit their perspectives on our long-standing facial hair and grooming policy, and I appreciate their earnest and varied feedback. These most recent conversations are an extension of ongoing internal dialogue that dates back several years. Ultimately, the final decision rests with me, and after great consideration, we will be amending our expectations to allow our players and the uniforms personnel to have well-groomed beards moving forward. It is the appropriate time to move beyond the familiar comfort of our former policy." So the Yankees did have a clean-shaved face rule for almost 50 years, dating back to like 1975 or 76. I want to say 76. George Steinbrenner implemented that rule, the late George Steinbrenner, a long time, obviously, and notorious and controversial owner of the New York Yankees. He implemented that rule, and a lot of Yankee players, basically every Yankee player had to abide by that rule. And several players, including guys like Thurman Munson, Lou Piniella, and Don Mattingly, were very hesitant to follow that rule. The Yankees always allowed a mustache during this time period. You were allowed to keep a little bit of facial hair, but that was the extent that they would allow you to go, nothing beyond a mustache. So that meant that a lot of guys who like to sport long, curly hair and beards, they had to get the razor out. They had to go to the barber shop. They had to get the scissors out, whatever the hell they had to do. They had to get that stuff off their face. Steinbrenner would not allow it. There's a funny story. My favorite story when it comes to this rule was one year, I think the year that this began in 76, Lou Piniella, who notoriously had long hair in the 70s, for those of you who are young, who don't remember Piniella, he played in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So when he found out about this rule, he went up to Steinbrenner and he told him, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, he had long hair and a beard. And then Steinbrenner apparently took him to the Fort Lauderdale swimming pool. Back in those days, the Yankees had spring training in Fort Lauderdale. He takes him to the Fort Lauderdale swimming pool and he goes, "All right, you walk across the water, you can wear your hair any way you like." Because he brought up Jesus Christ. Jesus walked on water. You walk across this pool, you can wear your hair anywhere you like. And so Piniella lost his battle right there. It's one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite baseball stories of all time. So, yeah. And Don Mattingly, he got suspended in, I believe, the early 1990s because he refused to get a haircut. And Yankee fans backed him up. And he actually got benched for like 2 games, if I'm not mistaken, because he just did not get his haircut to the appropriate lengths that Steinbrenner had demanded his players get their haircuts. And then the fans backed him up. Eventually, Mattingly caved in, and then he eventually got his hair trimmed. But yeah, it was always a long-standing tradition. It was one big piece that made the Yankees different than every other Major League Baseball team. And I mean, we saw guys who grew their hair out in other places, and then when they come to the Yankees, they look like a completely different person. Prime example being Johnny Damon, who had the caveman look from the Red Sox from 04 to 05, comes to the Yankees and chopped it all off. You looked like he did when he first made his major league debut in the 1990s. And it was always, a very controversial topic among Yankee fans and sports fans. Many sports fans were criticizing the Yankees nowadays for, still implementing this rule, especially in the year 2025, considering, how, society is always stressing about, accept the way that people are and let them be who they are and all that stuff. I mean, personally, for me, when it came to the Yankees' facial hair, I personally didn't really care. That's just the way I felt. Whatever it was, it was. I mean, I think some guys honestly looked better with a beard than without a beard. So, like, when they came over, I mean, one guy who I thought really needed a beard was Ruben Odor. So when he came over to the Yankees, I joked with some friends of mine. I said he looks like Shrek because he without a beard. So like some guys really need a beard. So like I'm not really driving myself crazy over this. And when he said well-groomed beards, I actually, as long as it's not a Johnny Damon caveman look, it's fine. I'm really not, driving myself crazy over this. As long as you win the World Series, I don't really care what you do, how you do it. Just try to win the World Series. That's all I really give a crap about. So that's my stance on the whole facial hair policy. If this really makes, ball players, a little looser and happy, like you said, Devin Williams was the one who brought this to Steinbrenner's attention. He called for a personal meeting with him and told him this is going to be a factor in whether or not I re-sign with you guys next season. So, Steinbrenner, realized that, Williams is arguably the best closer in all of Major League Baseball. He's somebody the Yankees are going to want to try and bring back after this season because he is a free agent. And if this is going to be a role, if this is the least that they can do, then so be it. This is the least that they can do to make Williams feel comfortable. So, you know what? Just do it. So, I'm not going to fault Steinbrenner. I know there are very diehard Yankee fans who are very passionate about keeping tradition alive to the fullest extent. I'm all about trying to keep tradition alive too. But for me, facial hair is not necessarily that much of a tradition for me. So there are more important things for me. Tradition is about putting on the best team you can year in and year out, inviting guys to camp and Old Timers Day to try and pass along their knowledge of the game to the younger generation, the current generation of Yankee players. So for me, the Yankee facial hair policy was never the be-all, end-all thing that I care about at the end of the day when it comes to this team. So, these guys now get to grow facial hair. Great. Don't take advantage of it. If you're gonna be more concerned about your facial hair rather than your statistics and whether or not you're helping your team win, then I don't want you on my team in the first place. So that's the way I feel about the Yankees facial hair policy. And in terms of them not playing New York after losses, thank God. Thank freaking God. It sounded so stupid to hear. I mean, you think about the times they played New York after every single home game. I get it. Look, New York is a great song, but it's an upbeat song. It's supposed to be played for happy occasions. I mean, was it a happy occasion when the Red Sox spanked the Yankees 16-1 in the playoffs and you're playing that song at the end of the day? Not only after that, but Aaron Judge played that song on the boombox in Fenway Park just a couple of days prior, and now you have the Red Sox mocking you guys after kicking your ass on your home turf. So is that an appropriate time to play that? No. Was it an appropriate time to play when the Astros swept your asses in 2022? No. Was it an appropriate time when the Dodgers won the World Series last year, like you mentioned, after you just botched and threw the ball around like a bar of soap? No. So, yes, thank God they're stopping this. It wasn't always like this, actually, in the past. They used to play a version of this song by Liza Minnelli. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She had her own version of New York. And the Yankees used to play that at the old Yankee Stadium after losses. But she wasn't happy about that when she figured that out. And she told them, stop playing that song or play it after wins. So, the Yankees eventually just decided to stop playing her version altogether. And it's been Frank Sinatra's version ever since. Win, loss, you name it. That's the first thing you hear at the end of a baseball game. So I think the Yankees are going to be playing That's Life by Frank Sinatra after losses for now, which I can get behind 100%. It just sounded so stupid, and it was you're giving the opposition and opposing fans more mockery opportunities to mock the Yankees. The Yankees are already the most hated team in all of baseball. So, playing New York after losses was just stupid. It was asinine, and thank God they stopped doing that, because it's silly. Like this is not a happy occasion when the Yankees lose a game. You have 40 to 50,000 people on a nightly basis paying their hard-earned money to see the Yankees, win a baseball game, and they don't win, so they're in a bad mood. It's like it's like at a funeral and you're playing a happy song at a funeral. So thank God they stopped doing that. That bothered me more than the Yankees facial hair policy. So yeah, I'm just glad that at least is stopping, because that was pretty stupid.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that they'd still do have policy. I mean, not policy; it's more tradition. But I mean, obviously, the facial hair policy is now gone. The New York policy is now gone. But they still play YMCA, which I think is really cool. Throughout games and stuff, which is totally fine. There's a couple of things that you guys are still doing, which are totally fine. Yeah, I mean, those are kind of two things I think for a while that are kind of long overdue. And now for you, Ryan, you probably get your wish after kind of what's been a long period of time of that stuff. So that's that. So we're going to now get into what is the latest going on with Nolan Arenado, the third baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals. Of course, Arenado has been swirled around with all of these trade rumors that have been going on with his name. He's even gotten asked himself during the media from the St. Louis side of how he's been kind of handling them. And he's basically been saying that I'm still here. I'm still with the team. I'm still going to put my hard work into it. And basically what's been going on as of late. So earlier on in the off season, Arenado's camp, he basically had a couple teams that he was going to reach out to in terms of waiving his no trade clause. One of the teams that he was not going to waive his no trade clause to originally was the Houston Astros. And the Houston Astros obviously were doing everything they could to bring back Alex Bregman before he came to my Boston Red Sox. So currently, as of right now, Arenado's name is still out there. Of course, Ryan, your New York Yankees have kind of still been around his name as you guys are trying to upgrade the third base position over there. And now, too, the Houston Astros seem like they're bounding back into the swing of things for Arenado. I think personally his overall swing is really made for that park over in Houston. But the biggest thing would they put Altuve over to left field, where he's gotten a ton of snaps in the outfield during spring training. And they put Paredes, who is their new guy that they brought over from third base, over to second base. There would just be a ton of moving parts over there. But regardless, the Cardinals actually played, funny enough, your New York Yankees yesterday in a spring training game. And Arenado personally drove 3 hours to George Steinbrenner Field to take part in this game against the Yankees. And there was a ton of type of like chatter, kind of going on. Was there a specific reason for that? A lot of times driving 3 hours. I don't know if it was personally he did it himself or not, but just the fact is that his name's still out there. There's, I think, still a ton of teams that are still out there for him. So, Ryan, I don't know how you would feel about potentially bringing Arenado over to the Bronx. If there's any other team specifically that think would be a good fit for him. I just don't know in terms of how you feel about this. Originally, for a long period of time, the Red Sox were really the team that were looking at Arenado. I think for couple weeks really before they got into Bregman, Arenado seemed like he was going to be a Red Sox, but now obviously he's still out there. He still could be a St. Louis Cardinal by opening day. It's really, there's a ton of options that could be going on for this guy. So what do you think personally about the Arenado sweepstakes?
Well, when it came to him playing in the spring training game against the Yankees yesterday, we're recording this February 27th, Thursday, so that was on February 26th. According to Arenado, it was nothing personal. It was nothing personal or whatever, but he did say he wanted to just catch up with Paul Goldschmidt, DJ LeMahieu, and a personal trainer of his who works in the area. So those were a couple of other factors, but he also just wanted to get some action in, according to him. I'm reading this article off the New York Post, because he didn't play in the he hadn't played in the spring train. He didn't play on the previous day on the Cardinals spring training schedule Cardinals played a game on Tuesday of this week, and he didn't partake in that. So according to him, he wanted to get some reps in on Sunday. But when it comes to Arenado and whether or not and where he's going to be this year, I think no matter what, at the end of the year, he's not going to be a St. Louis Cardinal. If he's not dealt right now, I think he's going to be dealt at the deadline because the Cardinals, I don't think are going to go anywhere this year. So one way or the other, I think Arenado is going to end up in a different uniform by the end of this year. Now, it still could be the Yankees. I would not be opposed to bringing in Nolan Arenado. I still think he's a dangerous bat, and I still think he's a very good fielder. Yeah, he's not the same player he was, a couple of years ago in his prime, especially in Colorado or, in his first couple of seasons in St. Louis. But I definitely think Arenado, he's a future Hall of Famer if you ask me. And I think he still has a couple of I still think he's got some pop in that bat, and I still think he's got some magic in that glove. So I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him over. I know you touched upon, the Astros, the fact that, they have, they're kind of still figuring out their fielding situation. So, the Astros are another possibility for him. But I don't see him going to the Astros, though. I just don't see that happening. I think the Yankees would be more logical option for him. The Yankees third baseman situation right now is still kind of up in the air. They're still figuring out. Right now, it's kind of like a platoon or a rotation for their third base between Oswaldo Cabrera, DJ LeMahieu, and Oswald Peraza. So they're still trying to figure out who's going to get the majority of the reps out there at third base. So, if Arenado comes over, then, one of those guys. Some of those guys are not going to be getting a lot of playing time, so there's also that to consider. The Yankees still owe LeMahieu a good amount of money for the next 2 seasons, I believe. So yeah, it's just a lot of up in the air, and I feel like it's more talk than action at this point. We're at the end of February, we're about to go into March. When it comes to Arenado, I think. I'd give it maybe like another week or two. If nothing happens in the next week or two, then I think Arenado is going to be on the Cardinals come opening day. And the Cardinals then will look to deal him at the deadline to try and get a couple of prospects to try and continue to retool and rebuild that organization from the ground up. So, yeah, it's interesting, and I think the Yankees would be the most logical fit for Arenado because, like I said, he's got Goldschmidt, he's got LeMahieu there, and he's close with both of those guys. So we'll see what happens. But no matter what, Arenado is not going to be in red and white at the end of this season.
Yeah, I think just hit like you mentioned. He said it wasn't a showcase, type of game, but I think in the back of his mind is just like, I see Goldschmidt playing for a different team. I wouldn't be also shocked. You mentioned obviously Arenado being a name that could be on the deadline, to look at in terms of a name, right? And just looking at his overall projections, Ryan, he will be still, I think, a really good bat. I think, like you mentioned, his overall stats as of right now aren't great in spring, but spring is spring. He went 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts against you guys yesterday. But his overall FanGraph stats, his projections, they're projecting him to play 152 games, 658 plate appearances, 22 homers. Last year, he had 16 homers. So basically, they're projecting double the amount of homers this season. And then they're projecting a 260 average with a 318 OBP, a 424 slug. He had a 394 slug last year. And then he's going to project to be having a 107 once created WRC plus, and then a 3.2 WAR player. So it's not like this guy at 34 years old has completely fallen off, right? No. Not specifically. He's still playing at a pretty good level, and he's going to be a free agent in 2028. But I think we pretty much agree that he's not going to be lasting with the Cardinals until then. I think that he wants to play for a contending team that wants to win. And we'll have to see in terms of from now until the trade deadline where the Cardinals are going to be. Obviously, I predicted them on our projections that they're going to finish in last. So I think there's going to be a ton of teams to kind of resurface this back to the trade deadline. If I had to make a prediction as of right now, if he's going to be moved before opening day or be moved at the trade deadline, I would probably say at this point in time, probably at the trade deadline. I think just at this point in time, if he was going to be moved at this point in time before opening day, I think it already would have happened by now. So we're going to have to see. But that right now, folks, is the latest on the Nolan Arenado latest. So now we're going to get into our last topic tonight of the show. And MLB and the ESPN deal is done in terms of the overall partnership that they had after so many years, Ron. I mean, just like Sunday Night Baseball, right, on ESPN.
35 years.
Red Sox, Yankees, Joe Morgan, right? You know, you had just so many great memories. I mean, Sunday Night Baseball, I mean, I would just go right to my couch right away because I knew a lot of the times that the Sunday Night Baseball games would be really good primary matchups. They would do everything in their power, very similar like to Sunday Night Football. I mean, I hate to cross sports, but a very similar type of comparison where they want to put like on the best of the best, the big market cities. You had, you know, Dodgers, Giants. You had Mets, Braves, Mets, Phillies, Yankees, Astros. Right? It was always like great, obviously great theater, no matter what. And Ryan, if you want to kind of go more into detail in terms of the reasoning behind this overall ending to this long-term partnership, by all means, you can go ahead. But just all I just got to say is just absolutely, this is a monumental type of thing for people that absolutely love baseball. And, you know, apparently they're trying to recreate a new deal. I don't know specifically if that's going to happen, but regardless or not, you know, baseball and ESPN, just my big vivid memory specifically of this is it for it is obviously just me as a kid watching Sunday Night Baseball. And the best game that I saw, Ryan, and I mean, this would be kind of a sour taste in your mouth, was the back-to-back against your Yankees at Fenway Park. If you want to remember specifically the players for the Red Sox that hit it, you can.
I know who they were. I think so.
Oh, what do you think? Do you remember?
Okay, all right. So I think it was. This might not be in the right order.
Okay.
But Varitek was one, I think.
Yeah. He was the last one. He was the last person to hit it.
Okay. So Mike Lowell, I think, was another.
He was 3.
Manny, I know, was another.
He was 1.
And JD Drew.
JD Drew was 2. Yeah. So you got all 4. The order was Manny was 1, JD was 2, Lowell was 3, and then Varitek was 4. That was arguably.
Here's a backup question: who'd they hit it off of?
Was it the same pitcher?
It was the same pitcher. Yep.
Oh, man,
you're not going to get this. He's a no. He vanished after this.
Oh God,
you're not going to get this.
You're going to have to tell me this one.
His name is Chase Wright.
Wow, I would have had no idea about that.
Nobody knows who he is. The only reason he started that game was because at the time the Yankees rotation was depleted with injuries and they had nobody.
Yeah.
So they threw this poor kid out on Sunday Night Baseball on national television to face the Boston Red Sox, the eventual world champs that year, and he served up 4 meatballs to 4 veteran hitters.
Man, those were some of our better teams back in the day. But yeah, that, at least for me, and when you look at it in terms of the ESPN baseball type of days, if this is it for the partnership, that was my favorite memory, was against the Yankees, a great hated rival, and just to go back to back. I mean, that of course really never ever happens in baseball, but that was my biggest one. So for you, Ryan, what do you think about this overall and into this potential partnership with ESPN? If you have more into detail, by all means, go ahead. And if there was specifically a great memory that you had as a fan, if this is the end for the partnership, what was your favorite memory as a Yankee fan on watching baseball on ESPN? And what do you think just specifically happens from here on out?
Yeah, it's definitely the end of an era. ESPN and, baseball, Sunday Night Baseball, that was, my favorite show during the summer. I was always curious to see what the matchup was. Obviously, whenever my team was on ESPN, I was always, my eyes were always glued to my television set. And it was always exciting to hear, Joe Morgan and John Miller call a game together. It just gave a special feeling. Like this was not just any other ordinary regular season game. This game had meaning. And when your team was on ESPN, it was a privilege and it was an honor. So, that's the way I always, took ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. But it's just unfortunate because, this was just a long-standing partnership that these two have had with one another. And they're cutting their deal short. Their deal wasn't supposed to expire until 2028. But, MLB decided to cut the ties after this season in 2025. According to Rob Manfred, there were a variety of factors that went into the decision. One of the biggest factors that he addressed was he was not pleased with the lack of baseball coverage on ESPN. And honestly, I kind of agree with him on that. I think the coverage on ESPN could be a lot better. I feel that, ESPN is too focused on the NBA and the NFL, and they don't give enough attention to MLB and especially the NHL, which I think is egregious. So I do agree with that the coverage on ESPN in turn for baseball could be a lot better. ESPN still currently pays Major League Baseball $550 million per season for the broadcast rights, and they're still looking to try and revise the deal. So the two sides, something could still come up. The two sides could sit down and try and negotiate a new contract at some point during the season. But for right now, they're going their separate ways, and it is just it's unfortunate, and because ESPN, thousands of people across the country watch this channel, and they're always curious to see what kind of sports the show the channel is going to be showcasing. A lot of casuals, non-baseball fans or casual fans, do watch ESPN Sunday Night Baseball because those are the notable matchups. I mean, no offense to the fans of these teams, but nobody cares about the Rays and the Rockies when they face each other. They're going to be interested in matchups like Yankees, Red Sox, Giants, Dodgers, Mets, Yankees, Braves, Mets, so on and so forth. Yeah. So it's definitely gonna hurt the game. I think in a way, not having a deal like this. I know that MLB is really into the streaming platforms now. Now they got games on Apple TV, Amazon Prime. I mean, they still do games on Fox, but these two had been partners for 35 years. Dating back to the 1990s season, and now it's going to come to an end after this season unless they decide to try and negotiate new terms for a new contract. It doesn't look like these two sides are going to reconcile anytime soon. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, it boiled down to the lack of coverage, and I also think money played a role in this as well. I think Major League Baseball wanted a little more on their end, and yeah, it's just sad. It really is. I mean, regardless of what you thought of the commentary on ESPN or what you think of ESPN in general, nowadays, baseball really played a big role in ESPN gaining popularity during the 1990s and 2000s. I was always excited as a little kid, waking up in the morning before school, watching the highlights on SportsCenter. In the old days, they used to just replay the baseball highlights in the morning over and over again when you couldn't watch the games. So, it was always exciting when they would, when you were waiting for your team's highlights to pop up.
Yeah.
Like, where's my team? Where's my team? It was like, anticipation, waiting for dessert to happen. Yep. You got to look at all these other teams that you don't care about, and then you finally see your team's highlights pop up. So, I mean, you were talking about your favorite ESPN moment, the four consecutive home runs the Red Sox hit against the Yankees in April of 2007. Mm-hmm. For me, my favorite memory on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball was August 9th, 2009, Yankees-Red Sox at Yankee Stadium. It was the bottom of the eighth inning. The Yanks were down 2-1, and Johnny Damon and Mark Teixeira hit back-to-back home runs off Daniel Bard in the bottom of the eighth, and that led the Yankees to a 4-game series sweep over the Red Sox, and that eventually was the at that moment, I knew the Yankees were winning the World Series, and pretty much most of baseball fans knew after that 4-game sweep, because the Red Sox had taken the first 8 games against the Yankees that year, and then the Yankees completely reversed the script in the second half of the season, beginning with that series, and they just never looked back, and they went on to win the World Series. And I look at that series against the Red Sox really as like a defining moment for that team. They found their identity. They knew they were a better team than the Red Sox, and they knew they were a better team than everybody else that year. And they showed it, and they won the World Series that year. So that's one of my favorite memories on ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball. And I also remember watching when Derek Jeter flew into the stands in 2004. The next day on ESPN, when they were showing those replay highlights, I was always, I just wanted to keep watching those highlights from that game over and over again, because I thought that was the coolest thing as a 7-year-old. So, yeah, it's definitely the end of it. It's sad. I wish it didn't come. I hope these two sides get back together and try to negotiate a new contract, because there's a lot of tradition and history here with ESPN and Major League Baseball. So, I hope, right now it looks like it's the end, but deep down, I don't think it's going to be the end forever. I think eventually one day these two sides will realize that they do need each other, and they'll come up with new contracts. But I just hope it doesn't go on too long at the end of the day. So, never say never. That's what I tell myself. I think these two sides will eventually, come to a new agreement. But for right now, kind of at a standstill.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to see in terms of like where things go from here. But if this is it, I mean, it was a hell of a run. And, just like you mentioned, not only just the physical games, but just the overall coverage. I think it was just a lot better back in the day. I enjoyed that too, where they had just like clips of, the top 10. There's a ton of baseball clips as well too. I bet you saw a ton of stuff. Jeter in the top 10, with the, of course, the iconic
throws that whenever he did that was always in the top 10.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the iconic crow hop, in between third and short. And that was great, too. I mean, as a Sox fan, that was one of my favorite throws that he always had. Of course, the catch that he had, going into the stands off of the Trout Nixon foul ball, that was, of course, another one that, unfortunately, I remember. But, yeah, I mean, it was just a great overall run if this is it. But time will tell in terms of what happens from here. I hope that they figure something out. And, baseball still, the revenues, they still have a ton that they could obviously kind of go through from here as well, too. So, that'll be that. Well, that will conclude the show overall. I know we didn't go the full overall hour, but, I mean, we could talk, Ryan, ends on ends about how the Yankees and the Red Sox are playing in spring training baseball. That's meaningless ball. I don't think we really want to go through that. So from there, I think that'll conclude the show for today. Thank you guys for overly watching Heading for the Cycle episode 61. We will have that specifically for you guys on Saturday, March 1st at 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, the day before my birthday. So I'm very excited for my birthday coming on Sunday. Thank you so much, Ryan. I appreciate it. I will be at the Celtics game on Sunday for my birthday, so I'm excited for that. But thank you guys for watching Heading for the Cycle, episode 61. We will see you guys next week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
Take care.